So let's talk now about chapter 5, which is called Sideshow Attraction. And so I wrote the music for this a little later on. It was probably fall of 2017 or so. And I have to admit that so I think it was right around the time that prophet dude that I mentioned in the intro to all these videos. He returned, uh, made a return visit to our church, um, at that I was attending at the time. That is no longer there. Um, this guy returned, and it was I think around 6 months after my mentor passed away, and right before that, see, I'm a big fan of the band The Contortionist, and they had just released a single called "Return to the Earth" for their. It was like the one of the lead singles for their album Clairvoyant, which is an amazing album. Um, but I remember before one of the services, I was sitting on some stairs behind the church, this industrial kind of parking lot sort of scene, and just listening to that song over and over and over again, and like just kind of the feeling that of it washing over me sort of thing. And I hadn't seen the woman I wanted to marry in 6 months either, and just listening to that song over and over again. And so when I wrote this song, I wanted it to sound similar. I mean, obviously, I don't want to copy what they did, but I wanted it to have the same kind of feel, or um, yeah, just this same kind of emotional appeal to the music. Um, and I guess even in the way that I sang a lot of the song too, I just wanted it to have that feel. And so, yeah, I must say, if it wasn't for the Contortionist, the song wouldn't exist, at least in the form that it does. Like I said before, I already had the lyrics and all for the song, but it would have sounded way different if it wasn't for the Contortionist. Um, so, all right, the literal meaning of what's going on in this song. Um, the protagonist, he has been walking on his journey just for uh, maybe weeks or so, could be a month. The exact time frame doesn't matter, but he's still, I guess, on the beginning legs of his journey, and he hasn't come across really any form of civilization since he left the beach. Um, but then he finds a town by the edge of a plateau, and it's a place where on the surface everything seems good. Everything seems fine. The people seem okay, but um, he goes inside basically a tent, um, which I'd say in the song, kind of tongue in cheek, uh, is labeled as the Lord's house. So, I mean, that is a clear allegory or metaphor for it being a church, and not obviously not the universal church or anything like that, but just an institution that we would call church. Um, but like once he goes inside this place, he finds out, pretty much immediately that they are demanding unquestioning loyalty. Um, and so like he stays there for a while because he's looking for a home. He wants to kind of settle down, um, and really just find a place where he belongs. Um, but he soon discovers that the people there are more interested in entertainment value and being wooed by supposed miracles than by like a reality of real and true faith. Um, and so the chorus, he keeps asking himself whether he should, stay or go, essentially like you know, the Clash or whatever. But I mean, obviously, it's the same question. Is all I'm saying there. Um, but at the end of the song, he knows it isn't a home for him, and therefore he has to leave and move on in his journey. So use like phrases like mythic as jackalopes, um, or they spoke of distant soldiers beating plows into swords, um, but demanding allegiance and kissing their earthly lords' rings. Um, and there's like talk of a Fiji mermaid, an angel to believe. And so, what I wanted to do in this song was um, use this like circus sideshow attraction sort of language as an allegory for some of the weird things that can go on within certain churches out there. Um, and so, like, also in the song, there's another character introduced, um, called an Elephant Man, which, like, it was maybe 150 years ago. I can't remember exactly when, but there was this guy named Joseph Merrick who was part of those kind of like sideshow attraction, freak show sort of things. And he was called the Elephant Man, um, because of his appearance, but like he had this, I think it was like a bone deformity, um, where he essentially like throughout his life grew like these bone spurs all over his body. Like it's pretty sad, like if you see pictures. But also the song's kind of like a nod towards, um, like a subtle nod towards early Mastodon, which I love, like their first handful of albums. And they've got a song called Joseph Merrick on like one of their first albums that is good stuff. But anyway, this Elephant Man, um, like literally gets up, steals the pulpit, and denounces all the like deceit and conceit that he sees going on inside this tent. But unfortunately, even though like he preaches truth to them, uh, the people just reject him because he doesn't appear the way that they think he should. Um, and there's some lines, a generation wooed by gold dust, sprinkles birthed from ceiling rafters. And I'm going to stop there because I see, like, growing up in this like evangelical Pentecostalism, um, I remember hearing like people that, I still respect them, even though, like, I haven't seen some of these people in years, but like youth group leaders and stuff like that, they would talk about these, tent revivals or just revivals in general, where there would be gold dust on, like, I don't know, like the evangelists or whatever. I briefly recall somebody telling a story where some like evangelist, prophet, whatever he was, um, like in the pulpit started like shaking through his hair and like gold dust just pouring out of like from his scalp like it was dandruff or something. And I remember people talking about how they wanted to go to these kind of conferences or revivals because it was like so apparent that God was moving in these places. And over time, I recall years ago reading articles where like some of this stuff was obviously fabricated. Like they would literally get, I guess, the janitors for these churches to put like gold dust glitter in the like ceiling, like HVAC system, and it would, I guess, slowly blow out into, the church or whatever, and people, would think that gold dust was just manifesting out of nowhere. And for the record, I'm not going to say that it isn't possible. If I'm to think that, with God all things are possible, which I recognize that scripture is often used out of context, but just at face value, even philosophically speaking, if he is God, then why couldn't he do something like that? Why can't miracles happen? Um, and so, yeah, for the record, you know, what some would, like in theology courses in seminaries call, cessationism, like I don't believe that at all. Um, which, cessationism is essentially the doctrine that many within Christendom have, that, age of apostles is over with, um, miracles don't take place anymore, that sort of thing. That's just never made sense to me. Um, in my opinion, you literally would have to go into extra biblical text to even come up with that conclusion, because there's just I just don't find any textual evidence that, oh, one day God woke up and miracles just stopped. It's just not there. Um, I don't know how to explain it more than that. But at the same time, I am a rational guy, and sometimes that stuff gets a little hokey. And by all means, I don't want to be the person to stand in the way of God moving. I know, there are people that I actually like really respect at my current church who do believe in that sort of stuff happening, left and right. And that's fine. It doesn't bother me. Um, but all I'm trying to point out in this song is religious manipulation. That's what's going on in the literal context of this song, is that these people in charge of this town, of this tent revival sort of thing, are manipulating the people, and the people are eating it up for like entertainment value. And I'm not for that at all. um so says like only smoke and mirrors this plateau offered. Okay, hoping to control dogma in a pillar of fire of willpower, as if to blow the wind backwards. Um, that pretty much means to me like it's pointless. That's just a kind of complicated way of my just saying that sort of religious manipulation is just pointless. So, like, for me personally, this song draws inspiration from two eras in my life. Because I don't think that this song is about any one particular thing, but like, there are two time periods that come to mind when I talk about this song. And the first is my college years. Um, I'm not going to talk trash about where I went to school. I'm glad I went there. I learned a lot of things, I met a lot of really cool people. A lot of cool people. Um, had a lot of good times, learned a lot of good information, walked away with 2 degrees. So, why should I complain about that? Um, I mean, it was good, but there were a lot of really crappy things about the place too. Um, it being, this like very overtly charismatic Pentecostal university. Um, some of it, I think, was a form of manipulation. I do think that with a lot of things. So um, I don't think like anything that I mentioned in this song remotely resembles anything that I witnessed while, at that school for like 5 years of my life. Um, it's just using, this like circus motif to kind of be the allegory for that stuff. Um, and then the second era that it kind of represents, at least to me personally, was some people might remember this, but I guess it's been like 12 years or so. I just hit a wall in my life, for lack of better term, and decided to make some major changes in my life. And one of those changes was to leave the church that I was basically grew up in. Um, um, to deal with personal issues and just kind of find myself again because I felt lost. And in that process, I ended up like writing basically a book about this journey that I went on. And I visited 55, 60 different religious organizations within a like 7 month span. Most of them were, Christian churches. Some of them were not at all. Um, I kind of look at it as like a comparative analysis or a critique in some ways. But there was some weird places that I went to. My brother and I went to this one uh, service for essentially this like new age cult, and like they did some weird stuff, and like we sat there the whole time trying not to like bust out laughing because it was just ridiculous. Um, but at the same time, like I remember I went while I was on vacation that summer when I was doing all this stuff. I went to this church at the beach, and it was like I want to say it was the church had purchased like an old Elvis impersonation theater or something like that. Something really weird like that. And I mean, it wasn't Pentecostal charismatic, but if you've ever seen the movie Saved, which I think Michael Stipe from REM produced that film. It had like Macaulay Culkin in it and some other people, but um, there's this like scene at the very beginning of the movie where they're doing this like praise and worship thing in their like high school, and it's like hyper emotional, and um it's just weird. And that's kind of like what I saw at this church on vacation. And it was like they had like professional video, and they were just doing these like really quick pans of the stage for like minutes on end, where it's just like a blur and just over and over and over again. And like I was looking around, and like everybody in the audience was just kind of sitting there like sipping their coffee, like, okay, like it was just ridiculous to me. And like got this clear image in my head of this like something that's supposed to be artful and beautiful, and they've turned it into this entertainment crap. Like it was just really disgusting and disconcerting to like sit through that. And that's kind of the imagery that I got in this song, in these lyrics. What I wanted to convey is just this kind of sickening entertainment and psychological manipulation, um, to get people's unquestioned loyalty instead of giving them like the real truth of the gospel. That's that's what this whole thing was about in this song.